Episode 23 of the podcast, we are going to cover two very common training words that can cause confusion, frustration, and chaos. This is the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, and a certified professional dog trainer. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. Today I want to talk about two really common training words that can cause confusion, frustration, and really some chaos. So the first of those words is the word no. In my experience, and I'm in people's homes and as a groomer and, finding out how people use it at home, in my experience, the average Joe says no, but never really expects a behavior to occur. Doesn't expect the dog to keep working with them. No is a reprimand. That's very, very vague and weird. They're not really paying attention to what their dog does. They just want the dog to stop doing what they're doing. On the surface, that sounds really great, right? Like, oh, well, yeah, that's perfect. Except that what I see, if you watch dogs with their owners, what I see is the owner says no, and the dog goes away, which the dog has learned, oh, if I leave, if I get out of this situation, then I'm good, right? And there's nowhere to go. So they're on a grooming table or in a tub or in a crate, nowhere to go, right? Another one I see pretty often, the owner says no, and the dog like grovels. You know what I mean? Like flattens out a little bit, which is terrible on a grooming table, right? We don't want that. We don't want a dog who suddenly loses their legs. Like, oh, okay, you said no, right? But a lot of owners see that as, yeah, good job. All right. Like his attitude has been adjusted, right? And then the other thing that happens is that I see owners say no, and the dog will do extra fast before they get to you, right? So the dog's like, okay, crap, he's on to me. Finish what I was doing and then leave, right? Or speed it up. But at the end of the day, none of those responses are helpful in a grooming setting. They probably are helpful at home. And that's why people continue to use those at home. And it makes sense at home. But as a word, it is part of the way we normally talk. And because we talk to each other and use no, it really easily slips into this more conversational kind of parent talking to a kid version. I'm going to say, though, that may be cultural, too. I mean, I get that. I'm in the Northeast of the United States. I'm in New England, but it's definitely what I have seen over and over and over again in my area, and I don't think it's that different. I don't think we're the only ones who use no in this way. But when we use the word in the average Joe's house, it's working for them. They continue to use it. Or it's not working for them and they continue to use it out of frustration. So it can also mean, knock it the heck, dog, you're on my last nerve. None of those things are particularly helpful in a grooming setting. So while it's really common for us to say, but that's not how I teach it, I get that, right? Trainers, you're probably out there going, that's not how I teach it, but they need a way to know that that's the moment they did something wrong. And oh man, I am so with that, okay? I get that. But the word no gets used differently. And my own customers do it. They go off and do their own thing at some point, They're like, thanks for the training, Chrissy. We took what we liked, But that word is so wrapped up, we don't even necessarily notice we're doing it. I will use an example. There are times where it'll sputter out of my mouth just conversationally. And my husband's like, that we don't use no. Ha, 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 ha. Thanks a lot, guy. Because it's very conversational. It's part of our vocabulary. So when I have my trainer hat on, I usually will teach owners a different word, something that's not as conversational. Like if they really want their dog to stop doing something, maybe it's quit, or stop. Something that we define and we use in a particular situation. Because the other thing that happens with things like no, well, what behaviors were going on? Because if they use it at home for the dog's top couple of things they have trouble with, that might be, I'm not barking. Why would you tell me to stop barking? In the dog's mind, it means something entirely different. I'm not getting into the trash. why would you tell me to not get into the trash, right? Because the dog hears no for very specific things, or hears it all the time and really doesn't care, right? So they just hear it as you're frustrated. I'm going to go away until you're more fun. And that's not a good message on a grooming table. That's not going to be helpful to anybody. So when we think about words, it's really important to think about the way they're being used at home so that we're not backtracking and making our life harder. We don't need to make our life harder. Like, it's already hard. The other thing about words like no or quit, even the one that or stop, or, some of the other more common versions, is that it doesn't tell the dog what they should be doing. Now, I'm not a big fan of no. I'm really not, because I find it's a crutch. It's a way to try to stop a dog from doing what they're doing. I would rather have an owner or a groomer or anybody look at the behavior you're seeing, what you observe, what you would describe to a painter trying to paint the scene. Right? You can't tell the painter the dog was anxious. He's like, I'm trying to paint a picture. Could you tell me what his legs were doing? Could you tell me what his face is doing? Right? But to think about the behavior you saw and then ask for something specific, right? So it might be still something that we've been working on in a grooming shop, or we've been asking owners to work on as something that's rewardable, right? But hey, still. Calm them down again. It might be, relax, paw. I need this paw. Are you ready? Like, we have other ways to communicate with a dog so that we can get the job done without falling back on words like no, which are emotionally charged at home. Right? Like, I'd rather almost have something that's brand new that only happens in grooming so that owners aren't using it at home. I'll give you an example. For a while, I had a different reward signal than I was having my husband use so that he didn't ruin mine. I was like, no, you keep doing what you're doing the way you're doing it. You have fun with that. But I'm going to work on something different. Please don't use this particular sound. He's like, okay, all right. Because he doesn't care. He's not a dog trainer and he's not meticulous about what he's doing. He has fun. So, but if owners are using a word in a particular way, it can become very frustrating for dogs. So, imagine the dog can't go away and he's like, you just told me to stop getting in the trash and I'm not even getting in the freaking trash. And you just told me no. And that means stop getting in the trash. And now you're not letting me walk away or grovel. What do you want from me? And then you said it again because now I'm groveling and you said it again because groveling isn't something we want either, right? It's just this big feedback loop of frustration for everybody. It's not going to help you get the job done. If you're enjoying my podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Another common training word that can cause confusion, frustration, and chaos is another really common one, and that's the word good. Now, you might be thinking, how could that possibly cause chaos? Because, again, we're talking about the average Joe in their home talking very conversationally to their dog, right? They aren't necessarily following any sort of training goals when they say this word, right? So what does good mean in the average house with the average dog and the average owner? And what I have come to discover, again, I work in customers' homes when I do training, and in their homes when I'm doing their grooming. And I started my house call business almost 19 years ago. 19 years ago next month. So woohoo. But I started my house call business a long time ago, and this is what I see over and over and over again, and how that word transforms into something very different. So from a dog's point of view, good can mean things like you're going to get a cookie, right? It's something that's said during cookie time and only during cookie time. Sometimes that owners have taken that like, oh, and I have to tell him he's good before he gets a cookie. Like, I don't know why, but they do. Or good can mean we're going to go play. We're done, right? You see that a lot. Like, the dog sits and you tell him good and he's like, no, I'm off. Like super dog. I'm off, got to do my own thing. I don't need you, right? It means we're done. In fact, if you watch a lot of people when they're first learning to train their puppies, that's one of their frustration things is that like, well, I asked him to sit and he sat, good. And he went, woohoo, and he left. It's like, yeah, but you just told him you completed an action. So even if they're doing pretty well with training, Good means you've completed that action. And if they haven't taught them, now here's the next action and the next action and the next action, right? A lot of owners don't get to that point, and I think as dog professionals, we kind of look at it as like, how could you not want to train your dogs all the time? But I think most owners are really happy to have a dog that can handle a couple of things and is just a joy to be around. And for each of us, that's different. So the other thing that good has come to mean in a lot of the homes that I go into is simply, I love you. They hear it so often that it has no other meaning other than, I love you, right? When you say their name or you say good, I'm thinking of one particular customer in mind that when she said good to her dog's like, whatever, I know you love me. I realize I'm being anthropomorphic, attributing emotions and human emotions and stuff to a dog. But I wanted you to draw the parallel because I'm pretty sure you've seen it too, right? Owner says, good. And the dog's like, yeah. No idea what they did. They're like, yeah, I am. I'm Mr. Man. I'm awesome. It's not necessarily a training word in everyday conversation. And if a dog thinks that it means you get a cookie or we're done, you can go now, it becomes very frustrating in a grooming setting because maybe you just had the sprayer up near his ear and, you're spraying off some soap and you tell him he's good and he's like, done! Tries to jump out of the tub, like, no, you're not done yet. And you can see how, like, you tell him he's good again and good again and good again. And he's like, I haven't had any cookies. I haven't gotten a chance to leave. I hate this game. Right? There's a frustration there. In their mind, if they're going to get cookies or if they're going to get a chance to leave, they're like, I can't wait till she tells me I'm good. Or no, like, like, woohoo, oh, great, now I get to leave. So it becomes very frustrating for the grooming setting if we're using words like good. Now, I got to say, it's a habit. It's hard. I use good when I'm doing them on the table, unless I see that it starts to frustrate them. If I have a dog on my table and I'm like, yeah, that's good. And the dog's like, oh, awesome. How do I jump off of this thing? Are you going to take the grooming loop off or do I just hang myself? So then I have to kind of go, oh, okay, clearly good is a release word to you, right? Like clearly good means something different, or you're just searching my hands for cookies and I'm just building frustration. So I often replace that with something else. So if I'm observing a behavior that I really like, that I want them to continue, I might start adding the word for that behavior, right? So if he's holding still, I'm like, still, like think about it like still, because he's holding still. And, your voice can show approval just by the way you're speaking, right? You don't need to necessarily have something that means cookie time, especially in a setting where you might not be able to use treats. We've talked about that plenty of times, but think about just using your voice. But the one that I tend to switch it up to, if I'm noticing a dog has a definite reaction to the word good, is I switch it up to nice. Not many dogs are familiar enough with that word. So if you have a dog on the table and every time you say good, the dog is acting weird or getting frustrated, right? It might be that in their mind, they're like, why can't I leave? You're teasing me. You're taunting me. You're telling me, good, you can leave. And then I can't. And good, you can leave. And then I can't. And good. And I don't get any cookies and I don't get to leave. And they're like a 3-year-old who's having a tantrum. But it's not really their fault. It's the way that it gets used at home, which isn't really their fault either. People do things at home that they're pretty happy with. Or they say it out of frustration. Good isn't usually that one. That's usually no. That's just the, I'm so frustrated. Oh my God, how can you be like this? Part of how I observe this too is because as somebody who does private lessons, I often get called in when they're at their wit's end. They're like, okay, we've done group classes, we've done this, we've done that. We feel like we've read every book and watched every video, and we're still having these problems because private lessons really cater to somebody who needs some really direct one-on-one. So when I'm in their home and I'm seeing like, oh man, you're right. You say good and no all the time, but they aren't meaning what you thought they meant. And it's really common. So when we talk about things like good, we're observing the behavior, which I think most groomers and trainers are awesome at remembering. Like good always is something that we're observing that we liked, right? Like I don't think we have the same kind of problems with observing the behavior. But if you want to replace that word with something else, nice is a good one. Also because it tends to be kind of more chill, like nice. It doesn't have the same kind of sharp good that good has, you know. It's like nice. You can draw it out a little bit. It kind of your voice makes it sound like we're staying here. There's science behind this stuff, but you know, it's a short podcast. But if you find that using nice works for you, like I said, I think it's a new word for many dogs. But when I do lessons, I often will teach an owner a new word for the way we're going to do the behavior my way. Does that make sense? Instead of, okay, now words that you used to use, we're going to switch them up. That's really hard. It's hard for us as groomers. It's hard for us as trainers. It's hard for us as human beings. If you told me red is now blue, I'm going to have a really hard time remembering that. You know, which one's the blue cup? That one? You know, like I have to put a lot of thought into that if you're going to try to tell me red is blue, right? Because those are words that we use so normally. So if you replace it with something else that's encouraging, right? That's how we're going to get a little bit different. So those are our two words, the two common training words that we might want to avoid in a grooming setting, and that's no and good. And you hear them all the time, and it sounds good on the surface. See, here we go, using it in conversation. On the surface, it sounds like it's a great idea. But you know what? In reality, it means lots of different things to lots of different people. And more importantly, it means lots of different things to lots of different dogs. And it's not as cut and dry as we seem to think it should be. Even amongst owners, sometimes I really have to point out to them exactly what their dog does every time they say one of those words. And I have to videotape it and show it back for them to really have their aha moment. Like, oh, yeah, well, no wonder he hasn't changed much because that hasn't been helpful. And we thought we were doing it right. We watched that video. We saw those movies, you know. So it's all about thinking more about what exactly we want and helping a dog understand it. And if that means we come up with a different word, like if you are really used to using no in a way that means stop that in that moment, I would suggest like picking something different, quit, you know, that's a good one. I don't use them a lot. I find that no is meant to kind of tell a dog off. I'm not a big fan. I'd rather tell him exactly what I want him to do. Be still, stay with me, you know, all right, this foot, are you ready? Relax again. This foot, are you ready? Like in place of knock it off, right? It turns into, hey, I'm going to tell you how to work with me and help you be good at it. So now we're at the end of the podcast. And one of the things I wanted to tackle today is I've almost got the website up, finished. The creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com is almost done. Yay! So that'll be up soon. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, people tell me, oh, if only there were a trainer nearby who could teach me stuff. Guys, we are in 2019. Get out of that mindset because I can do a private lesson with you. Absolutely. If you are listening to a podcast on any sort of a smartphone or a computer, you have a device that we can do a lesson through. So I can help you with the dog on your table. I know sometimes people are reluctant. They're like, oh, but a video lesson, how much can I learn? This isn't a recorded video. This is me watching you, you watching me, and us being able to have a conversation as if I were sitting across the room and working through whatever a dog is doing and helping you observe the behaviors that you're seeing, helping you adjust the way you're doing things, helping you set up your room, make it a little bit more comfortable for a dog, helping with whatever it is you find you need help with. All right. So there are ways for us to have a one-on-one lesson. So contact me. You can contact me through happycrittersdogtraining.com. My email is Chrissy@happycritters.net because that's my real business. I'm in southern New Hampshire. I'm in Nashua, New Hampshire. So if you are actually local, we could do something in person, which is even more awesome. But don't forget that, live video, I can get a lot done with you. Live video. And in the past, that's meant that I've used my own dogs in the background, like, let me show you on this dog over here on my side of video. We can get a lot done. And that I think is of more value than trying to find a local trainer to come and help, because I'm also doing this for local trainers. So if you're a trainer and you're like, how can I help with the grooming process? Contact me, because we can do a lesson. We can talk one-on-one and to hash out what's really different about the grooming process and help you individually, because I really have a passion for this and it's not nearly as hard as people make it out to be. So that was our big podcast with the two most common training words. The word no and the word good can lead to confusion, frustration, and chaos. And so thinking about ways to use other words and thinking about ways to avoid using no anyway, right? So hopefully that was helpful. Have a great week and stay curious. If you'd like to talk to me, you can find me through my grooming and training business, happycrittersdogtraining.com, my email, chrissy@happycritters.net, and through the Creating Great Grooming Dogs Facebook page. And we have these awesome devices in our pockets that allow us to do live video with each other. I can help you with the dog on your table. We can set up live lessons, and you may be surprised at how much we can get accomplished together via video. I'm also happy to come to you if you're near my area in southern New Hampshire. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional Certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist Diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course, the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.